Hello and welcome back to another video here on this channel. We'll be discussing what's been somewhat of a busy week, but almost kind of a quiet week. It's been a strange one. There's lots of things to discuss and go over, Watford related stuff. A few things have happened, and firstly, I guess the first thing to talk about is Rob Edwards had his first interview brought out through WD18. Sam and Jacob did a good job with the interview there, and obviously the club kind of allows them to come in and speak to Rob, and it was nice to see. It was a bit longer. Some of the questions were asked were a little bit different, a little bit less generic as to what we might see normally. And we got kind of a feel for Rob Edwards, the person. Get a little bit of an idea of what he's about, and I think he comes across well on camera. He speaks well. He speaks with confidence. He's eloquent, and I think it was probably objective, accomplished for the club there in the sense of getting that good media out early, and just try and get a better feel around the team, around the club in general. Obviously, after relegation, there's a lot of things to repair, and I think one of the main things was relationships with the fans, and obviously they're trying to address that. Even the manner of the interview and how it was conducted was, somewhat of an attempt to do so. And I think Rob Edwards could be a good bridge for that. It was a positive. Not too much, obviously, to discuss necessarily from the content of that video. I think it speaks for itself. If you want to go watch it, head over and go watch. I'm sure you probably already have if you're watching this. It's worthwhile checking out, and interesting to see kind of a little bit more of a closer look at the new manager, and looking forward to seeing more as the weeks go on. I'm sure we'll start to get a few more things come in. Now, kind of the theme of these videos recently, well, since I started, with it being the off season, has been quite transfer heavy. Linking, talking about players potentially going, talking about any sort of rumours that come up, and it's been a little bit of a quieter one for rumours in terms of incoming, especially. But having said that, there are still a few to talk about. But I think in general, it's worth us just discussing quickly here the kind of feeling around the recruitment or the transfers or lack of so far this season. Now we're gauging this mainly through Twitter, which is obviously not always the best indication of how fans on a larger scale feel, but it is somewhere that a lot of us interact and kind of gauge some of the feeling and reaction amongst the fan group. So there's been some negativity on there, a lot of, I think, in my opinion, reactionary stuff, whether that be missing out on players, not signing players still being here. I think we have to bear in mind the window's only been open a couple of days. It's not something we can expect to be done instantly. There's free agent signings that have been announced. Yeah, that's fine. That's stuff the market we could have potentially been active in, but there aren't a ton of free agents. Obviously, there's one we'll get to. There aren't a ton of free agents that we're necessarily interested in or fighting for their signature. So, these deals take time, and having worked on deals before, and it's not a quick process. It's something that's going to take. There's numerous steps to reach, and it's not smooth. It's not easy, especially when you've got multiple clubs interested in players. This idea of having players ready to sign, ready to be there on the day one of the transfer window opening, or even just before pre-season. Yeah, in an ideal world, of course, you want to have everything together, have that preparation in place. The more time you have, the better. Of course, these, regardless of what you think of the ownership, they've worked at football clubs long enough to know that there's a benefit to doing that. It's not they just don't want to, or they're stupid, or they're lazy. There's genuine elements and factors at play which make these a little bit more complicated, especially if you have to be smart with your finances. You have to negotiate these things. You can't just go in and overpay for everything, overpay for the transfer fee, the signing on bonus, the agent fee, the contract. You can't just go in and do that. You've got to be smart, and sometimes these deals take a while to come through. And on top of that, we've discussed for a while, we want Rob Edwards to have say in these deals, and be allowed to be part of the process. And if that's to happen, then it might take some time as well to get this kind of committee approach on these signings and actually sanction them. So I think we should just calm down a little bit, in my opinion. Obviously, you're welcome to do what you want to do, but I think it would be wise to be a little bit more objective and wait and see what happens. We've just been relegated. There's a lot to sort out, and there's still plenty of opportunity for players to come in and to reshape the squad. The club clearly have to reshape the squad. They're going to be forced to do so because there are players they're going to have to part with. So let's just give them a bit of an opportunity. I think we should all be able to hold them accountable when things are done wrong, or give them credit when things are done correctly. But I think we're being a little bit reactionary here, and I think as a fan base generally we could be better than that. But yeah, I think there's been a lot of kind of negativity surrounding that, and it kind of popping up in some weird places too. I've seen Gioretta being mentioned a lot for kind of being held up for criticism. And I think that's a strange one. Again, we're falling down the Giraldi route where, we've got a lot of people commenting on the performance of these staff members without really knowing their role and knowing their exact impact on things that have arisen. You don't know kind of necessarily how much or how little Giuretti's had to do with certain aspects of the footballing operation. So it's just a strange thing, in my opinion, to go so heavily onto one figure and kind of make them the focal point of that frustration. As I said, we've done that at Giraldi before, and while some of it may be just, it's not. It's impossible to know. And this is also it's a wider issue. If you're talking about recruitment, it's not just Gioretta. He's obviously a central figure to that group, but there's a collective effort. There's lots of things at play, and in my opinion, with recruitment as well, is always to judge someone properly. In that sense, you have to judge one of the players that weren't signed too, because that he can bring forward players, or he can be involved in players that are coming forward which aren't given the go ahead, which isn't his decision. So let's be careful with that. Obviously, seeing Mogi Bayat as well. This is another guy who's being brought in to work at the club on a kind of contracted basis, effectively, where he's not an employee of the club, but he's obviously closely tied, using his pool of players through his agency, through his representatives that he has as well, his connections and contacts. This isn't an uncommon thing. It's maybe uncommon, perhaps how close, but clubs work heavily with agents. It's just how it happens. It's how clubs find their players. That is an element of recruitment now. That is the way it's shifted. So it's not uncommon. It's definitely more front and centre when it comes to Watford and Bayat. We've definitely kind of got a more public image of him than a lot of other clubs do with their contacts, because he's been at games, etc. But I'm not a massive fan of it myself. But then again, at the same time, we have to be objective. It's not all about him bringing in bad players. I mean, there are players that people are feeling pretty good about that Bayat has brought in or been part of the deals. He's part of the Kamara loser deal. These are players that people feel quite confident, quite happy about. So, I think let's just say there's a little bit. It remains to be seen how successful this period will be, how successful this transfer window will be. But as of now, we're so early into it, so early. We've still got players to move on. Let's just give it a little bit of time. Maybe part of this is because I think the Kane Wilson situation has definitely ruffled a few feathers. And look, Kane Wilson again, it's another deal which if we had wanted Kane Wilson, if we were serious about Kane Wilson, then we could have made an offer to him. We could have offered him a contract. We could have found a way to bring him in. And he went to Bristol City. I know there's discussion or talks of him wanting to stay in the area, but with what we have with Edwards and what we can offer in terms of pushing for promotion, probably a better contract, longer contract, better kind of offer, I'm sure we could have facilitated something there, but the club didn't go ahead with that. Now, again, you can't just put that on Gioretta. You can't put it on one person in particular. We don't know the situation. The club might not feel he's up to the standard. Rob Edwards might not feel he's up to the standard. Speculating, we're going to speculate because we're fans. It's a quiet time of the window for us. Perhaps we're bored or perhaps we're frustrated, whatever. But ultimately, we don't know. So heaping kind of negativity onto one aspect, you can be negative about it. If you're a big Kane Wilson fan and you're disappointed we didn't get Kane Wilson, then that's fine. Be frustrated, but try and kind of be a little bit objective about it too, if possible. And I've heard some suggestions of we've not got Kane Wilson. We're just going to go and bring in some classic Pozzo Bayat signing of someone we never heard of, but. I just think it's lazy criticism. I think it's low hanging fruit. I mean, how many people had heard of Kane Wilson before our interest in Edwards and him coming in? So, be negative, be frustrated, but let's try and channel it in a positive way if we could, or don't. I guess I've got no right to tell you what to do, but I don't know. I think that's how most people feel. So yeah, going on to Kane Wilson, that has been finished. Actually, let me just kind of shift this over here real quick. 1 second. So yes, so Kane Wilson deal is done. He's gone through to Bristol City, and it could be unfortunate. It could be a good player for Bristol City, or perhaps it's asking a lot. It's a big step up in standard for him. He's established, done well in League Two. hasn't established himself in League One and suddenly he's going to the Championship. Might be a big step up. He might kind of come through flying. He might be good. He might be solid. He could have been a good asset to us, but let's wait and see. We'll kind of judge this deal a little bit more as the season goes on, and also depending on how we kind of fill that gap as well, should we need to fill that right wing back position, which it looks like we will. One more thing I did actually want to say, sorry, in regards to transfers in Giuretta. There is this quote that has been going around. We'll just kind of go over here real quick. I mean, you can read it on the screen, but I'll read it out anyway. We wanted to react immediately by appointing the manager, giving a strong signal. We are ready to go again, and we already have an excellent team to add some elements to. We want to start over. Now, this got a lot of criticism. An absolute ton of criticism. Actually, I saw a fair amount of people retweeting this and commenting on this quote. Yeah, I mean, I get I can see the kind of elements that people will be frustrated about, but at the same time, I mean, an excellent team is a massive exaggeration. We don't have an excellent team. That's fair enough. But at the same time, I think he is saying we want an excellent team to add elements to. Like, we want to add players. We want to make it better. We want to start over again. Suggests the changing of players and personnel. Having an excellent team, fine. Maybe that's a not good use of, not a good kind of description of our current squad. But he's also talking about players that he knows, he interacts with, is part of his team. The team that he works for. I don't think it's crazy for him to be saying things that are positive about the group of players, especially those that are going to be staying. And there are some quality players in there. There are some good, solid quality Championship and Premier League standard players in there that can contribute. So I don't think it's that outlandish of a quote. I think it's just when the tension's high, people kind of we're jumping a little bit onto everything, and I get it in some ways. But at the same time, I think it's a relatively minor quote. It's not something that we've seen much worse, honestly, over the years. Some of the quotes we've had from Duxbury and stuff, I think those are things that have been more kind of genuine in the frustration there. But this one just seems a little bit mild to me. But that it clearly gauges kind of how people feel. As I said, there's a lot of negative comments, and I'm also not someone that's going to say only positive things about the club. I think we should criticise the club and the people that work at the club when it's fair and when it's just. And we are fans. We want what's best for the club, and sometimes you can see what is working and what's not working. You sometimes just want answers, and it's been frustrating over the last few years for sure. But that's just my opinion on that one there. So yeah, back to Kane Wilson. Kane Wilson's done. That's one we're not hitting on there. Back into the market for us, or kind of back into the market, I guess, suggests that we were interested, but continue looking for that right wing back position should Kiko leave. There's still been, well, it's not even should Kiko leave. I still think it's necessary to do so regardless of Kiko's situation, but there is obviously more of an urgent need for that player should Kiko move on. And there's still been mixed kind of views on that, or kind of mixed stories coming out as to whether he is going to be moving on or staying. It's possible he doesn't know himself, so that'd be interesting. I think in the ideal world, we'd bring one in and have Kiko available. That would be the ideal situation for us. I'm not sure in his contract situation with Kiko, but there were rumours or suggestions that he signed a new contract last year. So if he did do so, then you'd imagine there'd be some sort of relegation-friendly clause involved in that one. I don't think the club would be signing an extension without that at this point, seeing that Kiko isn't necessarily the easiest to move. So yeah, that's that one. We'll talk about a couple of links that we've had with some potential players. I'm using the Voices of the Vic here a lot for the news stuff here, so yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, Watford are interested in Aston Villa striker Cameron Archer on loan. The 20-year-old spent last season on loan at Preston North End, scoring 7 goals in 20 appearances. So this is an interesting one, I think. Talking about kind of the forwards that are coming in, we've definitely been linked to a couple. Him, Lucas Yao has been someone that we've been linked to as well. Both very different players. I think Yao's someone that's kind of a bigger bodied, kind of, he's athletic, he can get into the box, he can be strong, be physical, powerful shot on him. He's a threat, good goal scorer. Archer's a little bit different. He's a smaller, more mobile, kind of think a bit closer to Chicho Hernandez. Someone that's going to be a little bit more active in the box, kind of a little bit of a poacher. Athleticism, can play wide. I think they're two sorts of, or two types of forward which supplement each other well. And I think it's interesting we're looking at ones that are so different. I mean, you look, he's got 7 goals, 1 assist last season across 1,700 minutes. Played a lot from kind of coming from the left and got in the box, quite active. Shots, decent amount of shots per 90. yeah, I mean, you can see that there's some elements in terms of just real basic raw numbers there that he is involved in the play, and he's someone that's going to be contributing. I think, as I said, you compare him to Zhao, and they're very different. And to me, that's a positive because we're looking at various roles in the attacking positions. I don't think we're necessarily looking at one striker to bring in, and that's the job done. I think we are looking at options. I think we're looking at potentially two players that can play in different ways and help the team in different ways, because if you're going to be playing with the front two, they're not very often going to be the same sort of player, and we are a little bit light there, especially if someone like Hernandez was to leave. And when I look at Archer, I do think of that as being a potential Hernandez addition or replacement. So that'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. There are other clubs interested, whether that be a loan or a permanent. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in Archer. So yeah, hopefully we'll see something happen with that, or some more clarity on his situation, on the likelihood of that deal kind of happening, or whether that be with us or someone else, just to kind of find out what's going on with him. But he's a good player. I think he's someone that would suit what Rob's trying to do. And we look at that flexibility in those forward positions. You want to see someone that can play wide. They can get into wider areas to help support those wing backs. Playing some different spaces than what you'd normally expect from definitely a lone striker, but a more traditional centre forward than what we've seen in kind of recent years. But Archer's one that could well fit, and I like that one. If we keep identifying those sorts of players, we keep getting linked to those sorts of players, then I do think that's a positive. There was also talk about, I'm going to see if Voices of the Vic have this as well. Good podcast, by the way. I know I probably shouldn't promote rival. Well, I mean, why not? But another rival podcast, not a rival podcast, just another Watford podcast. Voices of It. Go check that one out, especially when I'm stealing their little bites here. Okay, yeah, West Ham. There's talks of Emmanuel Dennis news, Ismail Assar news. West Ham coming back again here, talking about Ismail Assar apparently 25 million. Sunday Mirror, so take that as you will. But more discussion. The fee is a little bit lower than what we'd have hoped a couple of years ago, but I think it's important now we do kind of break away from these players, and if you can bring in perhaps a 50 million or so fee, but for the two of them, then that's awesome, another positive. Another one in terms of bringing in a little bit of extra cash here, Richarlison advanced talks to switch from Everton to Tottenham. 10% sell-on fee would be useful. I know it's relatively small fees when we talk about the other players that are leaving, but it's still significant, and it could make a difference. That combined with parachute payments, just depends how much you kind of want to go for it. If you want to do like an Aston Villa where you go all out and make or break season, then I think we've got a little bit more flexibility in that, but it's potential and an interesting one. So yeah, we'll move on just towards the end. I think this will be a bit of a shorter video today. As I said, there's not as much to go over. We will be talking on the Watford Buzz podcast as well about some of these issues, and obviously having more of an open conversation as a three rather than just me talking at you. But yeah, so in terms of a couple of questions, we'll just get to real quick. What is the starting 11 you see at the start, so at the beginning of the season, with all potential departures? Now it's obviously tough because with some going out, it's kind of hard to say, and I won't go into excruciating detail, but I think we're most likely to see Okoye in goal. The back three is still got to be determined, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Chisakong centrally. Left centre back, I'd imagine, will be a new player. I think at this point, I think that'll be, if we're going to bring a centre back in, it'll be that left side. Right centre back, this is a question. Craig Cathcart potentially. I think there's a chance Edwards is going to like him there. But I also think there's an opportunity for another player, which is going to be discussed shortly after, in Jeremy Ngakia. Wing backs, that's the question again. Left wing back Kamara, you hope he stays. He's going to be there. Right wing back, still up in the air. Kiko, new player. I'm going to err on new player for now. That's what I'm going to go with. Central midfield again. You have to get someone else in there. I think unless we see something, unless Rob Edwards sees something in the likes of Tom Bashiru, Dan Gosling brings Zinkenegger back in, but Imran Loser for one. I'd say Zinkenegger or Espria in a more attacking position. Then next to Loser, I think that's the question mark. Tom Bashiru, a new player. Domingos Quina potentially. These are all options, and that will remain to be seen. And then the forward positions, again, Pedro and then plus one. Could be Chucho Hernandez, but I think it's most likely to be another one coming in. So kind of each section of the pitch, I think we're going to see a new player come in and have to be a starter based on what we have right now. So I'm not really sure if that answers your question, but it's difficult to say. Yes, this question from Paul. Do you think there's a chance we could deploy Ngakia as a right-sided centre-back and Edwards back three? Well, Edwards 3 at the back system. Okay on the ball, ability to move forward with it, and good defensively. And yeah, I agree. I do think there's a chance. Not the biggest, most physical centre-back. But if you're playing in that outside centre-back position, it's somewhat of a hybrid anyway. You want to have that positional flexibility. You've got to play laterally. You've got to be good in space, which is something which limits us currently with our centre-back options. I don't think we have a great depth in those sorts of players at all. But Ngakia has obviously been very good defensively. You're playing in that wide area. You are someone that can isolate attackers and close them down. Shut down space quickly. You can be aggressive. You can get his legs to the ball. He can step in front of attackers. Obviously possesses some good pace. Maybe not the strongest in the air, but someone that can compete at least. But I think another aspect, which is kind of mentioned there, the second part, is the ability to move forward on the ball. We discussed when Rob Edwards came in what he likes to do with his team and how he likes to progress the ball at pitch, and a big part of that comes from centre back. Now, funnily enough, at Forest Green Rovers, he also did something very similar with his right centre back, where they were quite often ball carrying, bringing the ball up the pitch, advancing the ball in that manner. Ngakia, what's really held him back for me as a right back has actually been his use of the ball, his kind of use of possession. He's not incisive particularly, and when you have someone like Kiko Femenia, which does support so well in possession, I think it's hard to justify sometimes bringing Ngakia in. But what he can do, arguably better than Kiko, is carry the ball, run with the ball, and this is what we would like to see from him at right centre back, or what I'd imagine Edwards would like to see from him at right centre back. He's bringing the ball up not to beat a man, but to drive into space, commit men, and then he can play off a pass, a relatively simple pass, open up space and allow that movement for your wing backs and also for your midfielders as well. So I think that could be a position. I think that's one to keep an eye out for, especially if we're not going to bring in too many defenders. We bring in, say, one or two, or one centre back. You might see that sort of thing happen, and it wouldn't surprise me if Edwards likes what he sees there. Next one, and I think this is the last one here from Adam. What do you think about bringing in a young striker on loan, Archer or Scarlett, say, and building an attack around him for short-term gain when they're certain they head back to their parent club? Yeah, this is a slightly controversial one in terms of, I think the opinion varies quite a lot in how we feel about loan players coming in. Obviously, on the one hand, you've got people that feel that you're developing another club's player, ultimately you don't get enough return, and you should be dedicating that time to your own team, your own players. On the other hand, there's someone that can help you win, and I think for me, I think you have to just look at this season as an isolated thing and say what gives us the best chance of getting promoted, what gives us the best opportunity, and if a loan option is a way of bringing in another striker, say we can sign some players and bring in a loan just to kind of bolster that team, I don't think we should be looking away from it, even if it takes away minutes from our own players. I think we worry about that problem if it arises. We worry about that problem afterwards. I just don't think it's an issue. I think you bring in players to play, especially being a striker that can help you score goals and be creative. And someone like Archer, as we kind of touched on briefly, he can contribute to that team. So for me, I'd have no issues with that whatsoever. And also, you never know how these things are going to go. Perhaps he goes back to his club and that's that. Perhaps we get him back on loan. Perhaps we sign him. You just don't know. So I wouldn't rule things out. And if he makes the team better, then at the stage we're in, with all the transition we have to go through, I think if we have to use loans to kind of bolster a squad that has a lot of turbulence and a lot of changeover in and out, I don't have a problem with it. And I think the names you mentioned there are more than reasonable, and I would be looking at loan options in every one of these positions we've got to cover. I wouldn't rule out loan at all. It's unlikely if you look at someone like Neco Williams at right wing back. That's it could be a potential loan. I wouldn't rule it out by any means because it's a loan. We could have a few and it'd still be worthwhile in my opinion. But yeah, it remains to be seen. So I think that covers pretty much everything. As I said, we'll be discussing things further on the Watford Buzz podcast. I'm pretty sure that's all the issues and all the things that have really been discussed this week. As I said, these videos will be more frequent when there's more to talk about. Right now, it's just kind of gauging it each week and seeing what there is to discuss. But yeah, once we get into games, we'll be talking, pre-game, post-game. We'll be talking about news, squad status, injuries, suspensions, whatever. We'll just be discussing whatever's going on as the season progresses and as things come out. So yeah, look forward to coming back with another one of these soon. Thanks to those that have been watching, appreciate it. Feel free to like and subscribe to make sure you see when I post this. However, you don't have to, because I will be also tweeting it. So if you watch kind of mainly coming through Twitter, then yeah, I will be kind of tweeting out every time I post one of these or upload one of these videos. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon.